We are here. Welcome to Coffee Experts Club on the 23rd of May.
Coming to you
Hey,
live from Washington State.
Washington, are you in Washington right now? Yeah,
I'm here.
Tri-Cities?
Yep.
Okay. What are you doing Thursday night?
Not much at all. I don't plan. It's hard for me to plan that far ahead these days. So
Live at 5, just throwing it out there. Live at 5.
are they still doing that on Thursdays?
Yeah, dude, starts up this week.
All right, let's do it.
Anybody else who's listening who lives in Washington State and our area is welcome to come as well, I guess.
You're all invited.
It's good to be back at Coffee Experts. I was, of course, gone on vacation for about 2.5 weeks. It felt like much shorter than that, actually. It just always like flies by. And you just got back in from Belize, yeah?
Yeah, I've been home for a couple weeks now, but the couple weeks you were gone that flew by, it really dragged on for us here, hanging on to all the things that you are typically in charge of.
That's the joys of vacation. You're like, I think I'm set. I think I got everything planned out for everybody. Everybody should be okay. And then you go, and then they're like, wait, what?
Texting and calling, and luckily the time difference made it, I think, a decent
Yeah, no, that it was pretty great. Like I went to for any of those people who are interested, I went over to Scandinavia did Sweden, Norway, and Denmark for 2.5 weeks. And it is actually spot on because anytime somebody needed something, I was just like chilling in bed at the end of the day, like watching like Norwegian broadcasting, which is weird, by the way. Some weird stuff on their broadcasts. So it was like, sure, I mean, we're just sitting here, why not? But what's new in the land of Belize?
So down in Belize, the most recent things that have been developing is, of course, store number two is what they're looking at this year. Hoping, I think, to be open by the same time as last year. So one per year seems like a healthy rate. I know when you and I were at Roasters, I think at our most we did one, and then a month later did another one. And
Yep.
anybody who's been in business for any length of time knows that growing that fast can basically cut your knees out from under you. So
Yep.
one a year seems like a healthy pace, and I think any business that is growing and capable of opening one a year after they open their first one is doing pretty okay. So
Yeah.
they're working with some local architects to translate, of course, the needs, because the coffee experience down there is a new one, and what they're trying to do is open one on the island. The island is almost no downtime, no off season. It's always, there's a lot of tourists there. So
That's great.
bringing the concept of like a drive-through experience to the island. They have some drive-throughs down there. I say some, but I'm pretty sure I've only seen one, and it's Sarita's, which is it's like a to-go ice cream, kind of like our Dairy Queen, but not like our Dairy Queen. And it's actually a Guatemalan franchise. Probably one of the nicest buildings I'd seen there. It was brand new the first time I went down there. It's called Sarita's. And but I don't think that they have drive-throughs on the island. Now, the island itself is just golf carts. All right.
Oh, this island. Okay.
San Pedro is what it's called. The same name as the cactus. So it's, the logistics behind, I mean, what we're used to is when we build a drive through, we think of stacking, we think of
Yep.
cars, we think of all of these different logistic points that are going to change when it's not a car. Now it is a golf cart. It's a golf cart. Now you can probably stack almost 1.5 times as many in the same space of golf carts. But then that comes with the same, like okay, well, if they're golf carts, then the drive-through window needs to be lower. There's something we have to
Just gonna ask that. I was like, your drive-through window. What are you gonna do?
Or I suppose we can have like a little raised up hill that they drive onto and drive off of. But it's also it's like a party island, so everybody's doing their thing and having fun. And there's the logistics of getting out of their golf cart in the drive-through, and there are all the things that they're thinking through. So good news, location number two. But all expansion comes with its own set of tasks, hurdles, and headaches. So we'll see what's coming. And most recently, we've been dealing with, and everybody here can attest to the same issues, supply chain issues.
Yeah.
More specifically, moving plastics in and out of the country. So while we got a nice heavy supply of plastic goods in. We've had to pivot our resourcing. So there's Belize is an interesting place. A lot of the grocery stores are ran by Chinese families, and they run them really well, and they all work in there. So what we've done is develop a nice relationship with some of those stores, and they're masters of importing, exporting. So they can import and export biodegradable plastics, and so they have kind of plugged us into that stream. So we've been able to now move to importing biodegradable plastics. So
Do you know what's have you gotten any word on like why plastic specifically? So I'm like guessing like cups, right?
Yeah, cups, well, single-use plastics. So if I wanted to import maybe a bottle of syrup, it might not be as big of a deal as a stack of 50, non-reusable plastic 12-ounce cups.
Is it government regulation that's going on, or?
Yeah, apparently it started 2 years ago, and we just went under the radar. Nobody knew that was what was being imported. At least we did. I mean, and we didn't know it was that we weren't supposed to, of course, because how am I supposed to know all the laws up front?
Yep.
So, yeah, it's been going on for 2 years, and the country itself has a tendency to litter. They're not quite on the reduce, reuse, recycle train that a lot of the world has begun to recognize as highly important.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the initiative is they say keep Belize clean, keep our rivers clean, and those rivers have been flowing down there for thousands of years and so many generations, and it's sad to see litter floating through the rivers or litter in the rainforest. So I think it's the initiative moving from Belize is a really young country.
Yep.
Actual Belize, and then the demographic is a lot of younger people. So a lot of younger people, and I think that they want to have a nice country in the future, to raise families in and raise their kids in. And of course, the nicer and cleaner the country, I think the more tourists are going to want to come visit there all the time. So I think that is the long short of why single-use plastics, but it's also nice. They're a little more expensive, but using biodegradable stuff, it makes me feel a little bit better. Like the carbon footprint of the business that we do. I mean, we produce a lot of garbage, a lot of waste. So any way that we can prioritize recycling. So we've been giving away our coffee grinds at the end of the day to whoever wants them, if it's a farmer or somebody who wants it for their garden. And reselling our glass bottles and our plastic bottles, because there's vendors down there who make their own oils, coconut oil or
Nice.
whatever it is of salsa, so we resell. We're trying to be as sustainable as possible. So while it may be an uncomfortable shift, I think it's a shift for the better.
Well, yeah, and nobody that's the worst thing. You go down to a beautiful country like that, and you go swimming, and you're like, oh, there's garbage everywhere. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that here. It's not like I remember as a kid, watching Saturday morning cartoons, and it was like every PSA was like, reduce, reuse, recycle. It's just something that's been ingrained into our brains. To think of throwing garbage on the ground, to me, I'm like, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. But it's just that's how we've grown up.
Yep.
So I mean, it makes sense from the country standpoint. You got to at some point start pushing your people to be like, hey, let's not just throw our garbage in the river, guys. Let's keep the country clean, because it is. You're right. Totally tourism. Me as an American, if I want to go down to a beautiful country, beautiful rainforest, last thing I want to see is garbage everywhere. I'm gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna pick a different country to go be a tourist in if it's just garbage piled on the side of the street. So that makes total sense for tourism. Super interesting that biodegradable plastic. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, I don't know if biodegradable plastic is the right term, but biodegradable material that we substitute for plastic
that replicates plastic, right?
Yeah.
That's actually, I there were these. I wish I should have grabbed one when I was in I think it was in Norway. They had these straws, and I absolutely abhor paper straws. To the nth degree, I hate them. And so I've seen the paper straws, the straws, that are made out of hay. But they had these ones that maybe it is the same material that you're talking about. It felt more like a plastic, like somebody had mixed a plastic waxy paper together and it was great. Like it was absolutely fantastic. I was like, okay, if you're gonna get rid of a plastic straw, this is actually a really good substitute. And I should have grabbed one. I didn't even think about it. I wonder if it's the same type of material, because there's the same way in Norway and Sweden. They're super conscious about the same thing. I mean, I would be too. Their countries are freaking beautiful. But that's yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's a good move, I guess, for such a small country. Like if you're a small country, a small government, and you have the ability to do it, get ahead of the curve before it just becomes like a giant dumpster.
Well, and the one of the cultural shifts that we've had to get used to is bags. People don't like drink carriers. People like plastic bags. A lot of people ride motorcycles. So if you just, get 2 or 3 drinks and stick them in a plastic bag and hook them on the handle, it's a lot easier than trying to carry a drink tray with you everywhere. So, and while drink trays can be, I think it's actually what do they call it? It's a paper, it's like a paper molding, it's like a recycled paper molding. It's not like the first use. They can be a little bit nicer on the environment, but I'll go down to the markets and there will be big signs that say no to single-use plastics, and you walk in and every vendor has stacks of thousands of them. So, it's been a cultural shift for them, I think, and it'll be slowly but surely shifting that direction. Thank goodness. Of course, like
you think there's an opportunity there possibly for De Los Mayas to sell like a reusable like to go bag? Like the grocery stores up here, it's like $3. You have your reusable bag and you just take it back every time. There could be an opportunity to have like a De Los Mayas branded bag for all those to go orders.
That's a great idea. A little DoorDash style.
Just throwing it out there. I mean, especially if you're going to be like serving to people riding around on golf carts, they're going to have to take all those drinks. I don't think there's a lot of cup holders in golf carts.
That's true. Maybe one.
Yeah, for the driver, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So you spent a few weeks over there, and of course coffee is something that just subconsciously probably catches the eye, as you've been in it for so long. What's the coffee culture like? And I mean, of course we read and hear, but unless you visit, you don't really know.
It's actually really, really good. And I was pleasantly surprised, because after the last few vacations I've taken where the coffee is just utter garbage, I was like, please let there at least be some good coffee. Like, I think I've talked about it at end all. Like, if you go to Italy, don't expect good coffee. Yeah, they may have created the espresso machine and invented the espresso machine, but they kind of just stopped there. Because anywhere you go in Italy to get coffee, it's absolute garbage. Unless it's like an American expat who's like opened a coffee shop there, and then the coffee shop's empty because it doesn't taste like garbage, so nobody wants to go there.
It's not authentic enough.
Yeah. But like, thankfully, I think the Scandinavian coffee scene is pretty. They're pretty on par with the US. They've got a chain there. I think it's just between Norway, Sweden, Denmark, those areas, but it's called Espresso House, and it seemed to be like their Starbucks. In that it was like, on just about every other corner. It was in all the countries, but it was light years better than Starbucks. I was like, holy cow, this is somebody actually has created like a corporate coffee shop that is not horrible. Their coffee was great. Their pastry selections and all of them are just Jesus to die for. They're so good. Like, they're definitely not like your standard, like, raspberry scone and blueberry muffin. It was like, croissants and focaccia sandwiches and ham and cheese, like everything. I was like, this is the best. But yeah, it was really good. It was so cool. So when we went to one of those when we first got in, I was like, okay, if this is what their corporate coffee is like, then we're probably okay.
So is there a lot of is the culture similar as far as dine in, takeout, drive through? Is it fast? Is it like a faster environment?
It's very craft coffee. It's very, very third wave. I'm trying to think if I even saw a drive through anything while we were there. We hung out mostly in the cities. So we were in, like Stockholm, Oslo, the larger cities, and there really isn't drive through culture because it's not like the cities aren't built that way. You don't have space for drive-throughs. You don't have space for giant parking lots. The cities are old, so you've got small streets and squares that people are just mostly pedestrian. But it was fast, like fast walk-in. So I mean, you think like De Los Mayas, how they're trying to pump out 1.5 minute, car times of foot traffic. They were fast like that. At least in that more corporate espresso house. We went to quite a few smaller coffee shops that were just, they're fantastic. We were hard pressed to find bad coffee while we were there, which was really cool. Saw quite a few like coffee carts, which we'll probably talk about in the future too. They have these, especially in like Stockholm, they have, you know, huge pedestrian squares for, you know, just people to walk around and congregate in. But you have a lot of like small, I wouldn't even call them food trucks. They're like food trailers, you know, somebody pulled in, hitched on the back of a car and dropped off. And so we saw quite a few coffee shops that, or just coffee trailers that looked like, you know, about the size of, the cart was about as wide as a trunk, maybe like a pickup bed, and about that deep. And you just have somebody who shoves an espresso machine into the back of that, and then they've got a little space on the sides for some cups and their grinder and you know, and sugar. And but it was good coffee even out of those. I was very, very surprised.
Does it look like DIY, or does it look like there's some sort of business that creates these things for people?
A lot of it was DIY, and a lot of them were cookie cutter prints of each other. So there's somewhere around there that somebody pumps out these food carts or these food trucks that are all kind of the same. I mean, kind of how you would expect, like whenever you see a taco truck here, you're like, oh, these are all kind of the same.
Yeah.
It was the same there. Super mobile. But again, the great thing about that business model is, like, when we were there last couple of weeks, we were about, I think tourist season kicks off 1st of June. So we're a few weeks ahead of tourist season.
Nice.
But there's so much foot traffic that you can sustain a business off of a cart versus having to have like that drive-through stand, or even like a walk up like De Los Mayas does. There's just so many, especially if you're in like the tourist hotspots where everybody's wanting to go to take their Instagram pictures. You just plop your little cart right there, and you've got, you know, instantly thousands of feet a day walking by you looking for coffee.
So is it so it's not, then it's used as craft? Even the carts are more of a craft style? Yeah. There's not a lot of, you know, extra sweet vanilla blendeds?
No, I mean, I was hard pressed to find really anything that was more the like Dutch Bros roasters style coffee. It's all very craft. But I mean, they're also, it's a different culture in that they're all much healthier than the US. So there's not a lot of that in general. Like, I mean, I think, and their biggest vice over there is they love ice cream for some reason. Like, people eat ice cream twice a day over there. It's weird. It's weird.
Did you start eating ice cream twice a day?
I ate so much ice cream when I was there. But like, that's the vice, and everything else is like as healthy as it can be. So most coffee shops, I mean, the espresso house, I don't even know if I saw any flavors. I mean, I'm sure there were a few, but everything was cappuccinos, brewed coffees, cortados, small lattes, and that was kind of it. I even had a hard time finding iced coffees for a little while, until we found like one of the espresso houses they did iced Americanos and iced mochas.
Wow.
So it's all hot drinks. It's all very smaller menus, and the espresso is actually was really good.
So my naivety, I don't really know what the weather patterns are like there. Does it stay pretty like mild weathered most of the year? Is that why the drinks stay hot?
Depending on where you go. We actually looked at the weather because I was like, how can I move here? What's the weather going to be like?
That was my next question. When are you heading out?
But like, if you go far up north, the weather can get pretty gnarly. But where typically most of the cities and larger cities are in Scandinavia are pretty south. And the weather, at least from what we looked at, it's like Tri-Cities-esque.
Okay.
So, you know, it gets cold in the winter, down to like 10, 15 degrees in the winter. But their summers don't get much hotter than about 85.
That's nice.
So it's very temperate, like super temperate. I think part of the reason why they mostly do hot coffee is also because half the year it's like dark all day. So
so then it's not like the city's not like here, then there's not a lot of rural. I mean, where we live is pretty rural. You know, is it just metro mostly? A lot of high.
Yeah.
population areas.
Yeah, I mean, it's they have a lot of rural area too. Especially we were riding from our first stop in Copenhagen to Stockholm. It's about like it was like a 5 hour train ride. We rode through like mostly rural
Wow.
land. But everything's connected via train too. So like everybody's, a couple hours train ride back and forth. But we didn't see yeah, it's just it's culturally different how they build their cities. You might be, in a rural area and have a small town, but even that small town is very condensed. It's not spread out like you would see, in an American suburban town where it's large parking lots, lots of areas to plop drive-throughs and standalone, buildings. Everything's super condensed and, multi-use. So there's one big building, then there's like four businesses in the bottom of the building, kind of like you'd see in any normal US city.
I see.
Which is cool. And it's mostly because those cities are probably, like 300 years old.
So if there's a lot of focus on the espresso and the way the espresso tastes and the flavor profile, is there like where do they get all that coffee from? Is there like one massive supplier that they import from, or did you get a chance to ask anybody this question? Or
I have no idea. I actually talked to Cody a bit the other day. Cody Anderson, we had him on for any of those who remember him. He's a roaster friend of ours. Probably have him on again. I was talking to him a bit about it. I don't know where they obviously import their coffee. They have to. But what he was saying, from what he knows about Scandinavian roasters, is they are super, super, super involved in really good craft roasting of espresso. So I'm assuming what they import is also really good coffees. We almost went to, in Oslo, there's a roastery and coffee shop owned by a guy who won barista champion in 2014, I believe. 2014 world barista champion. And he's got a roastery. We almost made it, we just didn't have time. And Cody actually recommended, he was like, did you go? I was like, I didn't have time. But yeah, apparently they're very, very honed in on good roast and good roasting of their coffee. Very much reminds me a lot of if you ever hear about Japanese roasters, like it's an extreme detailed craft to them. And I think the Scandies kind of take the same way, which I mean, it makes sense to me as to why even like their big corporate coffee shop had good coffee, because it was actually roasted really well. I was like, I got a brewed coffee and I was drinking. I was like, if this was a Starbucks, I would have thrown this away by now, but this is so good.
Yeah. So then, I mean, I've only heard, I'd love to visit that part of the world sometime, but I've heard that there's a lot less monopolization of businesses. And so there's more opportunity for free trade. So I would imagine that provides a nice environment for higher quality goods. As you mentioned, like the pastries are really good pastries. And I wonder if they supply their own pastries and bake them themselves, or if it's a partnership they have with a local business.
Oh, for sure. For sure. The way that I sort of was trying to explain it to actually Cody the other day, and that's not to dog on the US at all. It when you being there, I was like, this feels like quality over quantity. Like what they do there is like quality is very important. Healthy food, food that you can read all the ingredients on the label at, all of that stuff when it comes down to the pastries, to the syrups they use. Like they're very focused on quality and healthy living, whereas the US is very focused on like how much can we push out as fast as possible. Our profit, or the US's big profit point is, if I can push out a lot of an item, then I can make more money. And my ingredients might have to suffer so that I can get out large volumes. Whereas you go somewhere like the Scandies and it's like, we're going to push out lower volumes, but we're going to create a higher quality and charge a little bit more for it. And that's sort of the way their culture is geared. And that's definitely reflected in the coffee shops, from the pastries to we were saying, even while we were over there, even just going somewhere where I would have gotten what I would called fast food there, more like fast casual was the fastest thing they had. Like I would have gone in expecting like, okay, I'm just gonna get something to eat. It's probably not gonna be that great. You know, if I go to Chipotle here in the US, I'm like, it's not gonna be that great. Like the bar can only go so high. I'm just getting it because I'm hungry and I need something fast. Like I have that expectation, but taking that expectation over there, I go in and be like, holy crap, this is actually really good. Like this fast food is fresh and it's got great ingredients and it came out really well. So there's that weird dichotomy of the cultures, and the coffee I think is like I said, it's a direct reflection of that. Like every small coffee shop, even if it was at the back of a trailer, was really good.
Interesting. And we could take a page out of their book, definitely. And a lot of those places are a lot older than what
Yeah.
we're doing here in the States. So as we're in our infant stages, we have a lot to learn as far as health standards go and proper service.
Yeah,
Quality.
it's just it's a different culture. It would be hard. Like I love that part of the culture, and I love all the craft. I don't know how you would import that into the US, because you'd have to
Right.
basically, completely change an entire country's mindset of how they view fast food, fast casual food, fast coffee, quick coffee, what's craft, what's not.
Mhm.
It's yeah, that would be such a weird shift for the US.
Well, and bringing it back into the Belize conversation, one of the things that we get imported is plastic bottles with syrups and sauces. So having to find a solution for that now, they're thinking about starting to make their own syrups and sauces, which is going to be interesting because then importation is still going to be a factor because you can't get some of that stuff is just not grown naturally down there. So thinking about really how to create these, reading the labels on the products that we're using and trying to recreate that in a healthier manner, so to speak. I don't know how I would source, certain items that I can't even pronounce. So you're just doing it in a natural way, and I think it's better to leverage that over ease. And you'd save money in the long run, creating your own products rather than purchasing them. There, everybody wants, their share of the payment when you purchase through a corporation, whatever it is, that if it's shipping or if it's labeling or if it's the manufacture of the bottles that they use, it all adds up into the $8 price tag for each bottle. So I think starting early is better than building a nice foundation and then having to pivot thousands and thousands of bottles.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean that's spot on. If you can get in there early and even build in those processes of how are you gonna, like, when is the barista going to take the time to make the chocolate sauce or the caramel sauce, like building that in early, then it's just a matter of scaling versus, yeah, exactly. Like, how do you take 20 locations worth of caramel sauce and be like, all right, we're making this in-house now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting pivot. But I think because of where Belize is at and because of where Scandinavia is at, they're two polar opposite ends of social development spectrum, and there's a lot of opportunity in Belize to train the people to expect a certain thing. The food there, you go out to eat, and the food, generally speaking, is really well made. There's not fast food. I mean, the food's, you can get fast food, but like you said, it's like fast casual. The food I get is still going to be a high quality. So the opportunity we could either create an experience of fast and cheap ingredients, or we can work hard now to create fast and quality ingredients and teach the people what to expect when they come to the drive-through window.
I mean, and I will say, if somebody shows up, like me from halfway across the world, expecting, something that's mid to subpar, and you blow my mind with something with really good ingredients, really fresh quality, I'm like, holy crap, I'm going to come here again.
Give us a nice TripAdvisor review.
Exactly.
Because we don't have Yelp down there yet.
Oh, man. All right. Well, we are going to have to cut it off there, sir. We could talk about Scandinavia, I'm sure, for hours and hours.
Yeah.
I believe we have a guest coming up next week. That should be pretty fun.
Next week. Is it Stephanie?
I think so. I believe so.
Right. Looking forward to hearing the expertise that is Stephanie and coffee marketing.
Yes. Stay tuned. We will see everybody later.
Peace.
Goodbye.